Welcome to Sacred Sleep Whisper, a space where stories, meditation, and spirituality meet to guide you to a deep and transformative sleep. Today, I invite you to relax and immerse yourself in a magical journey. Imagine a tranquil village surrounded by mystical mountains, where a young woman named Sophia discovers an ancient secret that will forever change her life, and perhaps yours too. Before we begin, find a comfortable spot. Take a deep breath and allow each exhale to carry away the weight of the day. Imagine a soft violet light enveloping you, purifying your emotions and protecting your energy. The violet flame is a symbol of transmutation and balance, a power capable of transforming fears and doubts into courage and clarity. In today's story, The Girl Who Found Saint Germain's Magical Flame, you will be transported to the forest of luminous shadows, a living and enchanted place where dreams meet the shadows of the soul. As we follow Sophia on her quest, remember that the greatest transformations begin within us. Let's explore this narrative together as you relax and prepare for a restorative sleep. Sophia lived in a tranquil village, surrounded by tall mountains and dense forests, where the wind whispered forgotten stories. Since childhood, she felt there was something special about that place, as if nature held secrets that were just waiting for someone curious enough to discover them. But Sophia's days were simple and monotonous. She helped her grandmother in the herbal medicine shop and spent her nights reading adventure books that transported her to fantastical worlds. The village, called Arvendel, was known for its ancient traditions. During festivals, the residents narrated legends about Saint Germain, a mystical sage who, according to history, found the key to a divine energy, the violet flame, capable of purifying the soul and bringing balance to whoever reached it. People considered it just a children's story, but for Sophia, there was something deeper in those words. One afternoon, while cleaning the attic of her grandmother's house, Sophia found an ancient diary wrapped in a purple linen cloth, hidden inside a wooden box. The pages were yellowed by time, but they contained drawings of mysterious symbols and notes in delicate handwriting. As she flipped through the diary, a phrase caught her attention. "The flame is both a search and a discovery, not outside, but within." Intrigued, she realized that the diary seemed to be a guide, mentioning the location of something grand in the nearby forest. Sophia tried to show the find to her grandmother, but the elderly woman's reaction was unexpected. With eyes full of concern, her grandmother simply said, "Sophia, leave that aside. Some things must remain in the past." But Sophia couldn't ignore the call. That night, as the sky was tinged with a rare lilac hue, she decided to follow the first steps indicated in the diary. Her journey began with a hand-drawn map pointing to a place called Dawn Clearing. The village was not just a home to stories and mysteries. A man named Victor Hadran, a calculating and influential figure, had a peculiar interest in ancient legends. He led a group that sought to explore the forest to find hidden relics. Victor believed that the violet flame was not just a spiritual symbol but a source of power that could be controlled. Upon learning that Sophia was investigating the legend, he began to follow her discreetly, hoping that the innocent young woman would lead him to the flame. With a mix of courage and hesitation, Sophia ventured into the forest, unaware that she was being watched by attentive eyes. But something magical happened when she crossed the river that separated the village from the clearing. The air seemed different, more alive. The trees whispered her name, and small glimmers danced around her, as if the forest recognized her presence. Sophia's journey would be filled with challenges, but also with discoveries. However, the greatest mystery was not what she would find in the forest, but what was hidden within herself. The forest around Arvendel, called by the villagers the Forest of Luminous Shadows, was a place full of contrasts. During the day, its vegetation vibrated with deep green tones, and flowers of rare colors bloomed in hidden clearings. At night, small lights, which the elders called soul fires, danced among the trees. They said these lights were the spirits of those who tried to find the violet flame but were not ready to understand its power. Sophia moved along ancient trails, guided by the map in the diary. Each step seemed to lead to a new world. Crystalline streams reflected the lilac sky, soft mosses covered stones like cloaks, and the air smelled of damp earth and wildflowers. However, there were signs that the forest also held its dangers. Giant trees with twisted roots seemed to form natural barriers, and sometimes the distant sound of breaking branches put Sophia on alert. Along the way, she encountered two unlikely allies. While exploring a mist-covered clearing, Sophia spotted a raven with feathers that gleamed like gold under the sunlight. To her surprise, the raven spoke. "You shouldn't be here, girl." Aldrin was a mysterious figure, half guardian, half guide. He had the gift of seeing the past and the future but was reserved with his words, preferring to offer riddles rather than direct answers. Despite his initially cynical attitude, Aldrin seemed to have a special interest in Sophia, as if he felt she had something to fulfill there. Shortly afterward, while setting up a small camp near a spring, a fox with orange fur emerged from the shadows. Its eyes shone as if they contained the starry sky itself. Felice was agile and astute, with a personality that contrasted with Aldrin's serious wisdom. While the raven warned her against dangers, the fox encouraged her to explore the unknown deeper into the forest. As Sophia advanced, her memories of the village and her grandmother's stories continued to shape her vision of the journey. In the village, Saint Germain was seen as a mystical figure, but the diary told another version. He was a man who achieved enlightenment after a long and dangerous search. The traditions of Arvendel, such as the symbols engraved on the doors of houses to ward off the shadows of forgetfulness, were actually fragments of the practices that Saint Germain left before disappearing. Victor Hadran, on the other hand, believed that these traditions were clues to finding the flame. His obsession made him ignore the village's warnings, treating the forest as a puzzle to be solved. He led a small group of followers who shared his ambition, but it was clear that his search was driven by greed, not enlightenment. As the forest revealed new mysteries, Sophia reflected on her own life. Growing up without her parents left a void in her heart, and living with her grandmother was marked by affection but also by silence. Sophia always felt out of place, as if she were waiting for something greater than the life she led. This feeling of emptiness was what pushed her forward, despite the dangers. One starlit night, while resting in the clearing, Sophia opened the diary again. One of the pages, previously illegible, now shimmered with golden letters. The flame recognizes those who carry light and shadow in balance. The journey is not just physical, but spiritual. At that moment, Aldrin and Felice looked at her with a mix of expectation and concern. Sophia began to realize that the forest was alive, testing her determination and revealing secrets as she showed courage and compassion. The world around her was changing, but she also felt an inner change. Something was awakening within her, a connection to something greater than herself. The forest began to reveal its true nature. As Sophia followed the map, the path became more challenging. The trees seemed denser, their roots forming natural traps, and the constant wind carried indistinguishable whispers. She felt she was being watched, but not just by Aldrin and Felice. Something deeper seemed to lurk in the shadows. One night, while advancing through a narrow passage between moss-covered rocks, Sophia was surrounded by a thick mist that seemed to have a will of its own. It was as if the forest was testing her courage. Aldrin flew to her side, shouting, "Don't listen to the voices, girl. They know how to invade your mind." Within the mist, Sophia began to hear echoes of her own voice, but distorted. These voices spoke of her deepest fears. "You are not worthy. You were never special. You are just running away from a common life." The words pierced her heart, almost making her give up. But then, Felice appeared, glowing slightly in the dark. The fox encouraged Sophia to remember the reason for her journey. The flame is not for the perfect, but for those who dare to walk even with flaws. Continue. With effort, Sophia gathered courage and advanced, crossing the mist. Upon emerging on the other side, she realized that the forest had transformed. Now, the trees had bright purple flowers, and the air seemed lighter. She felt she had passed an important test. As Sophia advanced, Victor and his group also made progress. They had discovered an alternative path, guided by clues stolen from other ancient maps. Victor believed that Sophia was in the lead only by chance, and was the only one capable of controlling the power of the violet flame. His group, armed with tools and rudimentary weapons, began marking the trees to track the path. However, the forest did not seem to like their presence. While Victor advanced, the lights that previously danced amicably turned into restless shadows, and the sound of footsteps seemed to echo with greater intensity, as if the environment rejected his greed. Sophia reached a crystalline lake surrounded by stones covered in runes. The water was so clear that it reflected the sky, but when she approached, the reflection showed something unexpected, a version of herself, but different. The image in the lake looked at her with eyes that glowed in purple, as if it were a version of her that had embraced the power of the flame. "What do you seek to find here?" asked the reflection, with a calm but powerful voice. Sophia hesitated. She didn't know how to respond. She wanted to discover the violet flame, but she didn't know exactly why. Felice jumped to her side and murmured, "Answer with your heart, not with fear." After reflecting, Sophia responded, "I want to understand who I am and what I can be. I want to find the balance between what I fear and what I hope for." The reflection smiled and disappeared, and the lake began to emit a soft light. In the center, a flower with golden petals floated to the surface. When Sophia picked it up, she felt a comforting warmth, as if it were the first step toward the truth of the flame. Soon after leaving the lake, Sophia was surprised by Victor and his group. He appeared on the path, blocking her way, with an arrogant smile on his face. "So it's you who's ahead. But this ends here. Hand over what you found. Sophia hesitated. Aldrin perched on her shoulder, whispering. They do not understand what they are seeking. Do not let them steal what they cannot comprehend. Victor tried to intimidate her, but Sophia realized something important. He did not understand the forest. While she respected and connected with the environment, Victor saw the forest only as an obstacle. Decided, she refused. Felice appeared by her side, staring at Victor's followers with a fierce gaze. At that moment, the forest reacted. The ground began to tremble, roots emerged from the soil, and the trees created natural barriers that separated Sophia from Victor. He shouted in frustration, promising to find her again. Although frightened, Sophia realized that the forest was on her side, but also that Victor would not give up easily. With the golden flower in hand, she knew she had to continue. The next location on the map seemed more dangerous, but she was determined to reach the end. Sophia continued her journey through the forest, but she realized that the challenges were not just physical or spiritual. The forest seemed to have a life of its own, testing not only her courage but also her intentions. As she advanced, small parallel stories emerged, revealing more about the world around her and deepening her relationships with her allies. During a pause at dusk, while Sophia studied the diary in search of clues, Aldrin, the golden raven, landed beside her. He remained silent for a while before speaking, his voice filled with melancholy. I was not always like this, trapped between the sky and the earth. Sophia looked up, curious. He continued, his words full of pain and wisdom. I was a human guardian of the flame, like others before me. But my greed overcame my devotion. I tried to use the power of the flame to mold the world to my will, and it punished me. Aldrin revealed that his fate of remaining as a golden raven was a constant reminder of his failure. He now guided those who sought the flame with sincerity, hoping that others would not make the same mistakes. His story resonated deeply with Sophia, who began to question whether her search was motivated by a desire for power or a genuine yearning for self-discovery. Later, while crossing a field covered with night-blooming flowers that glowed under the moonlight, Felice finally revealed why she was helping Sophia. My family has been guardians of the forest for generations, explained the fox. The violet flame maintains balance not only in the human heart but also in the heart of the world. She told how Victor and his ambition were unbalancing the forest's energy, making it more hostile and unpredictable. The magical creatures that lived there were disappearing, fearing that Victor would find the flame and corrupt it. Felice believed that Sophia was the only one who could prevent this, but she also knew that the young woman needed to face her own fears before being ready for the responsibility. On a particularly quiet night, Sophia was awakened by a strange sound, a soft melody that seemed to come from the depths of the forest. When she followed the sound, she found a group of small translucent figures dancing around a circle of stones. Aldrin explained that they were the forest spirits, guardians of the natural energies of the place. The spirits seemed cautious with Sophia, but one of them, bolder, approached and touched her hand. Sophia felt a wave of warmth and sadness, as if the spirit's memories were being shared with her. She saw flashes of ancient times when the forest was pure and untouched, and she realized that the violet flame was more than a legend, it was a living force that connected everything. The spirits warned her about Victor, who was now advancing rapidly, guided by an ancient amulet he had stolen from the village. Sophia promised to protect the forest, but she knew that this meant confronting him sooner or later. As Sophia strengthened her bonds with the forest and her allies, Victor faced conflicts within his own group. Some of his followers began to question his leadership, fearing the growing dangers of the forest. Victor, however, was ruthless. When one of his men tried to desert, he left him behind without remorse, reinforcing his determination to reach the flame at any cost. However, Sophia began to realize that Victor was not just a villain. In an unexpected moment, Aldrin revealed that Victor was also a scholar of ancient histories and that, at the beginning of his journey, he sought the flame for noble reasons, to save his family from a mysterious illness. However, frustration and years of fruitless searching had transformed him, and his obsession now obscured any trace of goodness. As she read more of the diary, Sophia began to notice something peculiar. The words seemed to change as she made progress in the forest. It was as if the diary was alive, responding to her actions and guiding her with new details. On a newly appeared page, she found a warning. When the past and present collide, only the truth can illuminate the path. This warning planted a seed of doubt in Sophia. She began to question whether Victor, with all his selfishness, could have a greater role in this story than it seemed. As Sophia approached the final location indicated by the diary, a mountain shrouded in golden mist known as the Peak of the Luminaria, she felt the growing weight of her decisions. Aldrin and Felice were more restless, as if they knew something big was about to happen. Upon reaching the base of the mountain, Sophia found a natural portal formed by two ancient trees, with runes engraved on their trunks. As soon as she passed through it, a feeling of lightness invaded her, as if she were entering a world outside of time. The forest around disappeared, giving way to a winding path that led to the top of the mountain, where purple lights danced in the sky. But she was not alone. Victor and two of his followers also reached the portal, finding a way to bypass the forest's barriers. He looked at her, his eyes gleaming with determination. "Don't try to stop me, girl. I've come too far to back down now." Before Sophia could react, the ground began to tremble. A strange energy emanated from the mountain, and a deep voice echoed through the air, as if the violet flame itself was speaking. "Only those whose hearts seek balance can continue." Aldrin and Felice tried to guide Sophia, but Victor, in his haste, took a dangerous shortcut that seemed to promise a quicker way to the top. However, his actions activated the mountain's traps. Large rocks began to roll, and the ground collapsed in several places, separating Sophia from Victor. As she ran to save herself, Sophia saw Victor fall into a cave below. For a moment, she thought about moving forward, but something inside her stopped her. Felice, noticing her hesitation, questioned her. "Why do you hesitate? Would he do the same for you?" Sophia looked at Aldrin, who simply said, "The flame recognizes not only strength but also compassion. Choose wisely." Despite everything Victor had done, Sophia decided to help him. Carefully descending into the cave, she found Victor trapped under a rock, injured but conscious. "You shouldn't have come back," he murmured, with a mix of anger and disbelief. Sophia helped him free himself, and together they found a new path leading to the top of the mountain. During the climb, Victor began to reveal more about his motivations. He talked about his family and how his search for the violet flame began as an attempt to save his daughter, but that the obsession with power consumed him over time. When they finally reached the top, Sophia and Victor found what they were looking for. The violet flame floated in a crystal altar, surrounded by circles of light that pulsed like heartbeats. It was a breathtaking sight, but also frightening. As soon as Sophia took a step forward, the flame projected an image of her own reflection, but this one was divided, half shone with light, and the other was covered by shadows. The voice of the flame echoed again. To achieve balance, you must face what you hide within yourself. Suddenly, Sophia was enveloped by a purple mist and transported to a surreal scene, an infinite field, where versions of herself appeared, each representing her insecurities and fears. She saw a young Sophia crying over the loss of her parents, an older version frustrated by never finding a purpose, and a shadowy version that wanted to give up the journey. As she struggled against these visions, Sophia began to understand that the flame was not a prize to be won, but a reflection of her own journey. She would need to accept all parts of herself, the good and the bad, to move forward. While Sophia faced her trial, Victor was also challenged by the flame. He saw visions of his daughter, sick and begging for help, but also of himself destroying everything around him in his search for power. For the first time, Victor seemed vulnerable. At the critical moment, Victor made an unexpected decision. Realizing that he was not worthy of controlling the flame, he chose to sacrifice his ambition to save Sophia. With effort, he diverted one of the magical barriers that held her, allowing her to complete her journey. Before disappearing into the light of the flame, Victor said, "You are different. Do not make the same mistakes I did." When Sophia emerged from the challenge, she found the flame waiting for her. As she touched it, a wave of energy coursed through her body, filling her with peace and clarity. She did not become more powerful, but she understood that true strength came from accepting who she was and using that acceptance to illuminate the path for others. Sophia felt the gentle warmth of the violet flame in her hands as she left the altar. The world around her seemed different, more vibrant, more alive. However, Victor's sacrifice hung over her like a reminder that the journey to that point had not been without cost. Aldrin and Felice, who awaited her at the edge of the altar, seemed relieved to see her. "So, you made it," said Aldrin, with a rare gleam of satisfaction in his golden eyes. "The flame accepted you." Sophia did not respond immediately. Instead, she looked at the empty space where Victor had disappeared moments earlier. He was not a good man, but in the end, he showed that there was still light within him. That touched her deeply. As they descended the mountain, Sophia began to notice subtle changes within herself. It was as if the flame had illuminated parts of her that had previously been hidden. The insecurities she carried, the doubt of not being good enough, the fear of not finding a purpose, seemed lighter now, as if they had lost the power to control her. However, along with this new clarity came responsibility. She knew she could not simply return to her life in Arvendel and forget everything she had learned. The flame was not something that could be possessed, it was a power that needed to be shared carefully and wisely. As they advanced, the forest began to change. The purple lights that danced in the trees now shone with renewed intensity, and the sound of nature seemed more harmonious. Aldrin explained that the forest was responding to the reconnection with the flame, which had been disturbed by Victor's presence and his group. The forest spirits reappeared, this time in greater numbers. They surrounded Sophia and her allies, projecting an aura of gratitude. One of the spirits approached her and placed a small golden flower in her hand, a symbol of protection and recognition of her role in restoring balance. "The forest is healed," said Felice, with a smile. "But the world outside is still waiting for you." When Sophia finally left the forest of luminous shadows, she felt a mix of nostalgia and renewal. She knew that, despite everything she had experienced, her journey was just beginning. Upon arriving at the village, she was greeted with curiosity and relief by the residents, who had noticed the changes in the forest but did not understand what had happened. Her grandmother, who initially tried to discourage her, was waiting at the door. With an emotional gaze, she hugged Sophia and whispered, "I knew you would find your way, my girl. But I worried that the price would be too high." Sophia responded with a calm smile, now understanding her grandmother's concern. It was difficult, but necessary. As she flipped through the diary for the last time, Sophia realized that its pages were now blank. It was as if the magical object had fulfilled its purpose and had nothing more to teach. However, she knew that the true knowledge was not in the diary, but in the experiences she had lived and the lessons she had learned. With the diary in hand, Sophia began to think about how she could share the power of the flame with others, not as an object of desire, but as a way to inspire inner changes and balance. Although Victor had disappeared, his impact on Sophia's journey was undeniable. She saw in him an example of what could happen when the search for power blinded people. However, she also saw redemption, for in the end, he found the strength to choose good over his ambition. Sophia decided to honor this sacrifice, ensuring that no one else would use the flame for selfish purposes. On a quiet morning, as the sun rose over the mountains, Sophia gathered a small group of people from the village, including her grandmother, to share what she had discovered. She did not reveal all the details, but she spoke about the importance of balance, respect for nature, and acceptance of one's own shadows. Although not everyone fully understood her words, many were touched by her serenity and conviction. Sophia's message began to spread, like small rays of light reaching the darkest corners of the world. After restoring balance in the forest and returning to Arvendel, Sophia felt renewed but also restless. Although she had achieved what seemed to be the goal of her journey, something inside her knew that the violet flame was not just the end, but the beginning of a new responsibility. Sophia began to realize that the knowledge she gained in the forest distanced her from the simple routines of Arvendel. The days in the herbal medicine shop with her grandmother seemed different now. Clients came with mundane problems, pains, discouragements, disagreements, and Sophia could not help but think about how the flame could help them find the balance they so desperately sought. One day, an elderly woman, Dona Leanne, visited the shop, desperate for help. She spoke of a conflict with her son, who had abandoned his family for personal ambitions. While her grandmother prepared calming herbs, Sophia listened to the story with attention, recognizing a reflection of what she herself had faced with Victor. "Perhaps what he needs is not punishment, but understanding," said Sophia, unexpectedly. The words surprised even her grandmother, but Dona Leanne seemed touched. Sophia began to realize that, Just as the violet flame had transformed her, she now could help others find their own balance, not with magic, but with compassion and understanding. Not everyone in Arvendel was willing to accept the changes in Sophia. Some began to question her stories about the forest and the flame, considering them fantasies or exaggerations. Among the most critical was a young man named Edgar, a hunter who always mocked the village's legends. "You say you found something magical," he provoked one day in the square. "But what about what we can see and touch? Why doesn't this flame help us face real difficulties?" Sophia, instead of reacting with anger, used the wisdom she had acquired. "The flame does not solve problems for us. It illuminates what is within each of us. The rest depends on us." Although her words did not convince everyone, some people began to listen to her with more attention. Gradually, resistance gave way to curiosity. Sophia knew that her connection with the forest was still important. From time to time, she returned to the Bosque das Sombras Luminosas to meditate and renew her energy. During one of these visits, she encountered the forest spirits again. They welcomed her with respect but also with a warning. Balance is fragile. There will always be those who seek to corrupt it. This message resonated with Sophia, strengthening her determination to protect the legacy of the violet flame. Aldrin, the golden raven, seemed lighter now, as if his burden was diminishing. One night, while watching the stars, he said to Sophia, "You have accomplished what many before you could not. Not only did you find the flame, but you understood it. Perhaps, one day, I too can be forgiven." Felice, for her part, became an even closer companion. The fox accompanied Sophia on her visits to the forest and in conversations with the villagers, serving as a constant reminder of the ancient wisdom of the place. The newly established peace in Arvendel was shaken when a group of outsiders arrived at the village, having heard rumors about the violet flame. Among them was a woman named Mara, who claimed to be a scholar of ancient legends. Although she seemed kind, Sophia felt something strange in her presence, an ambition that reminded her of Victor. Mara tried to persuade Sophia to guide her to the forest, promising to use the power of the flame to help humanity. However, Sophia realized that her search was not altruistic. Mara saw the flame as a tool, not as a symbol of balance. "The power of the flame is not in the strength it can offer," Sophia said to Mara. "It is in the transformation it provokes in those who find it." Mara was not satisfied with the answer and left, but Sophia knew that encounter was a warning. Others would come, seeking the flame with intentions that could unbalance what she had restored. In a moment of reflection, Sophia realized that her journey was not just about protecting the flame, but also about inspiring others to seek their own inner light. She decided to use what she had learned to teach the villagers of Arvendel, and perhaps beyond, about the importance of balance and acceptance. Thus, Sophia began to gather small groups to share stories, meditation practices, and lessons she had learned from the forest. Gradually, she realized that true transformation did not come from the flame, but from the seeds of change she planted in people's hearts. The climate in Arvendel began to change. Winter was approaching, bringing sharp winds and gray skies. The village seemed quieter, as if anticipating something significant. For Sophia, these days were marked by a growing sense of urgency. Mara's arrival and her group of outsiders had made it clear that the peace of the forest was not guaranteed. Mara had not given up on finding the violet flame. She returned to the village with a larger number of followers, including scholars, explorers, and even some inhabitants of Arvendel who had been seduced by her promises of wealth and power. Their presence brought unrest to the village, and Sophia felt that the balance she had fought so hard to restore was once again in danger. One night, while Sophia was walking through the square, Mara approached her directly. "Sophia, you know that the power of the flame is more than you can imagine. With it, we can change the world. Why keep such a precious gift only for yourself?" Sophia responded firmly. "The flame is not about power or control. It is about accepting who we are and finding balance. Using it any other way would corrupt it. And who decides that?" Mara replied, smiling coldly. Sophia realized that Mara was determined to reach the flame, regardless of the cost. The following days were tense. Some villagers began to support Mara, believing that her promises of prosperity could benefit everyone. Others remained by Sophia's side, trusting in her wisdom and the positive changes she had already brought. The tension culminated in a public confrontation in the square, where Mara openly challenged Sophia. "You fear what you cannot control," Mara accused. "But shouldn't it be up to all of us to decide how to use the flame?" Sophia tried to appeal to reason. "It is not a matter of control. The flame does not belong to anyone. Trying to force it will only bring more destruction." Despite her efforts, support for Mara continued to grow, and Sophia knew she needed to act before Mara led more people into the forest. Seeking clarity, Sophia returned to the Bosque das Sombras Luminosas with Aldrin and Felice. As they walked among the illuminated trees, the two offered valuable advice. "Mara is not just an external threat," said Aldrin, perching on a low branch. "She reflects an internal struggle that we all face, the desire to control what should be respected. You faced this within yourself. Now you need to help others see it." Felice, with her lighter voice, added, "But be careful. The forest is wise, but also ruthless with those who defy it. Mara will find what she seeks, but perhaps not in the way she imagines." That night, while meditating in the clearing where she found the golden flower, Sophia was surrounded by the forest spirits again. This time, they were more numerous and seemed restless. One of them spoke in a soft but clear voice. "The balance is threatened. If the flame falls into the wrong hands, the consequences will be irreparable." Sophia felt the weight of responsibility once again. She knew she could not avoid a confrontation with Mara. The only way to protect the flame was to face her directly. Before departing, the spirits offered Sophia a final test. They took her to a space between time and space, where she found herself facing a younger version of herself, a child full of dreams but also fears. "Are you ready for what is to come?" asked her younger self. "And if you fail?" Sophia looked at the child calmly. "Failure is part of the journey. But I am not alone. The forest taught me that." With these words, the test ended, and Sophia felt a renewed strength within her. She knew she was ready for whatever came next. Meanwhile, Mara and her group were preparing to enter the forest. They had deciphered some ancient runes and believed they were close to reaching the flame. But the forest, sensitive to the intentions of those who enter it, was already reacting. The winds howled louder, and the glow of the purple lights had become erratic, as if the very energy of the place was in conflict. Sophia knew the confrontation was inevitable. She prepared to return to the forest, not just to protect the flame, but to help Mara understand that the power she sought could not be conquered by force. Night fell over the forest with an unusual intensity. The sky, normally illuminated by the soft lights of the stars, was covered by dense clouds that seemed to pulse with a strange energy. Sophia knew that Mara and her group had already entered the forest of luminous shadows driven by ambition and the belief that they could control the violet flame. With Aldrin flying ahead and Felice running by her side, Sophia headed for the heart of the forest, where she knew the flame would be waiting, not just for Mara, but also for her. When Sophia reached the crystal altar, she found Mara and her group already there. Mara was at the center, examining the runes engraved on the altar, while her followers tried to understand how to access the power of the flame. But something was wrong. The forest around seemed darker and denser, as if protecting itself against their presence. "You are late, Sophia," said Mara, turning with a confident smile. "I knew you wouldn't stay out of this." "You do not understand what you are doing," Sophia replied, calmly but firmly. "The flame is not something that can be taken." Mara laughed. "You say that because you are afraid. Afraid that other people will discover they can be as powerful as you." As Mara approached the altar, a purple light began to glow in the crystal, growing in intensity. The forest spirits appeared around, forming a barrier that separated Sophia and Mara from their followers. It was as if the forest wanted that moment to be decided only between them. As soon as Mara touched the altar, the light of the flame exploded, enveloping both of them in a field of energy. Suddenly, Sophia and Mara were transported to an ethereal space, where there was no ground, sky, or horizon, only light and shadows moving around them. A voice echoed in the void, deep and powerful. "What do you seek, traveler?" Mara responded with determination. "Power. To change the world and make it better." The voice then turned to Sophia. "And you, guardian?" Sophia hesitated for a moment before responding. "Balance. Not to control, but to understand and help others find theirs." The lights around them began to change, forming images from the lives of the two women. For Mara, scenes from her difficult childhood, marked by loss and struggle, appeared. It was evident that her search for power came from a desire to never feel powerless again. For Sophia, images of her own journey appeared, the fears she faced, the sacrifices she saw, and the acceptance she found by understanding herself. The voice of the flame spoke again. "The power you seek does not exist outside of you. Balance is in accepting your shadows and your light. Those who cannot do so will find only destruction." Mara, furious, tried to force control of the flame. The light around them began to darken, and cracks appeared in the ethereal space. Sophia realized that if Mara continued, the unstable energy of the flame could destroy not only the forest but also everyone in it. "Stop, Mara!" Sophia shouted. "You do not need to do this. Do not tell me what I need or do not need to do. Mara replied, her hands glowing with a purple light as she tried to absorb the energy of the flame. Sophia realized she could not fight Mara with force. Instead, she approached and spoke with sincerity. I know how it feels when the world is out of our control. I also wanted to change everything at once. But that only takes us away from what really matters. For a moment, Mara hesitated. The images of her life began to shine around her again, showing not only her moments of pain but also the moments of love and kindness she had forgotten. When Mara finally stepped back, the energy around them began to stabilize. But the flame, now aware of the imbalance that had almost destroyed it, demanded a choice. Balance needs a guardian, said the voice. Who will take on this responsibility? Sophia stepped forward, willing to accept the role, but to her surprise, Mara also offered herself. Not for power, said Mara, her voice trembling, but to learn to find the balance within myself. The flame divided its energy between the two, connecting them forever as guardians of balance. Back at the altar, the light of the flame was brighter than ever. Mara's followers, realizing what had happened, began to retreat, aware that this was beyond their reach. Mara and Sophia, now allies, looked at each other with mutual respect. Perhaps I still have much to learn, said Mara. We all do, Sophia replied, with a smile. The forest, finally at peace, began to clear. The light of the violet flame remained shining intensely on the crystal altar, but now there was a new harmony in the forest. The energy that had been unstable was now calm, and the forest spirits dispersed silently, as if their mission had been accomplished. Sophia and Mara, standing before the altar, exchanged a meaningful look. The tension that had existed between them had disappeared, replaced by mutual understanding. Both had undergone profound transformations, Sophia, learning to embrace her role as a guardian of balance, and Mara, confronting her own shadows and finding a path to redemption. When the two women returned to the village, accompanied by Aldrin and Felice, the villagers gathered to hear their stories. Some were still skeptical, but many felt the change in the air, as if the very energy of Arvendel had become more alive and pure. Sophia was greeted with hugs and words of gratitude, especially from her grandmother, who seemed relieved to see her granddaughter return safely. You have done more than I could ever imagine, said the elderly woman, holding Sophia's hands. I am so proud of you. Mara, for her part, chose to stay in the village for a while, helping the villagers understand the balance she now sought for herself. She admitted her mistakes and began to rebuild her relationship with those she had negatively influenced. Sophia realized that her journey did not end there. She understood that the balance she found in the forest needed to be shared with others, but in a respectful and careful manner. Thus, she began to teach simple practices to the villagers of Arvendel, inspiring them to seek inner balance and respect the nature around them. With Mara's help, who had now become her ally, Sophia began to record her experiences and lessons, creating a new diary that would serve as a guide for future generations. This diary was not about the search for the flame, but about the search for inner balance. On a quiet morning, Aldrin perched on Sophia's shoulder for the last time. My mission here is complete, he said, with a serene tone. The flame has its guardians, and the forest is at peace. Perhaps now, finally, I can find the forgiveness I seek. With these words, Aldrin took flight, disappearing into the golden horizon. Felice also said goodbye, but with a lighter touch. I will always be here, Sophia. The forest is my home, and now, it is yours too. Time passed, and our Vendel prospered under the influence of the changes brought by Sophia. The village became known for its harmony with nature, attracting travelers seeking wisdom and inspiration. Sophia continued her work as a guide, helping others face their own shadows and find the light within them. Mara, for her part, embarked on a new journey, promising to bring balance to other places. On a starry night, Sophia returned to the crystal altar for the first time since the confrontation. She sat before the violet flame, now shining softly, and felt a deep peace. Thank you, she murmured, feeling connected to everything around her. She knew that the flame was not an end, but a beginning. Her journey continued, as did the journey of all those who sought balance, within and outside of Arvendel. Years passed, and Arvendel became a legendary village, known for its tranquility and connection to nature. Sophia, now older and wiser, continued sharing her journey with those who came seeking answers. On a golden afternoon, a young woman appeared at Sophia's door, holding a blank diary and asking about the violet flame. Sophia smiled, recognizing in her eyes the same curiosity that had guided her years ago. The flame is not a destination, said Sophia. It is a path that begins within you. Let us walk together. Now, as this journey comes to an end, allow the lessons of Sophia and the violet flame to continue illuminating your path. If you are falling asleep, may the deep and peaceful slumber renew your energies and bring clarity to your dreams. And if you are waking up, may this moment be the beginning of a day filled with balance and inspiration. Take a moment to reflect. What did this story awaken within you? Did any part of Sophia's journey make you ponder your own challenges or desires? Perhaps there is something inside you, a special flame, waiting to be discovered and embraced. If you enjoyed this experience, there are now 2 videos waiting for you on the screen. Click on one of them to explore new stories, meditations, or messages that can guide your mind and soul. Thank you for being here, and until our next adventure in Sacred Sleep Whisper.